as usual, please introduce yourself and the media you're working for when you ask your questions, and I'll start with the lady, Ana.
Thank you. Ana Pisanero from the Spanish news agency Europa Press. Regarding the Middle East, I would like to ask you, High Representative, on your opinion on the Conference of Paris. Do you think that such an event was useful, given that the two main parties were not on the table, and also with all the rumors around the possible moving of the US Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem? I don't know if this was discussed. I know on the way in you didn't want to comment specifically on it, but is this something that the party should avoid, US should avoid, in a moment where the US policy is not clear vis-a-vis Middle East? And a second quick question, if I may, is concerning the conference on Syria. Can we expect that at the beginning of April? Thank you.
We can expect it for spring. We're working for April. Obviously, we are liaising strictly with the UN to be in sync, but that could be April. On the conference in Paris, I think it was useful as a moment of gathering and reconfirming, gathering a large international community and reconfirming the commitment of the international community to the two-state solution, keeping this as a top priority of the international community. For the European Union, this is nothing new because it has always been and it continues to be high priority for us every single time. And as I said, consolidated EU positions were reflected in that. So to us, what is key is that there is a framework internationally that encourages and facilitates a situation where the parties can re-engage directly. When it comes to Jerusalem, the European Union, and we discussed that, yes, for sure, the European Union will continue to respect international consensus embodied in the UN Security Council Resolution 478 of 1980. We will for sure not move our delegation that is in Tel Aviv. And we hope that there can be a reflection on consequences of any move that is taken. We still do not have a new US administration. We have an administration in the US, not a new one yet. And I believe that it is very important for us all to refrain from unilateral actions, especially those that can have serious consequences in large sectors of public opinions in large parts of the world.
Lawrence.
Hi, Rep. Two questions, if I may. I understand that Britain essentially blocked a statement on the Middle East peace today, which would have welcomed the Paris conclusions. I wondered if you could comment on that and if you think that's in line with what Mr. Johnson has been saying in recent months, that Britain would continue to cooperate closely and not stop the EU taking its own decisions on foreign policy. Secondly, just on Jerusalem, what is the consequence, do you think, if the US makes the decision to move the embassy to Jerusalem?
On the first part of the question, no, this doesn't correspond to what happened in the room. We had an informal exchange on this issue. You know that we always have one part of our council that is an informal session. So maybe that contributes to spreading rumors and, how you say, retroscena, that sometimes have a little bit of fantasy in it. No, the main focus of our discussion was as I said, consensus we have, so no divisions on that, unity on the consolidated positions of the European Union on the Middle East peace process. And the perspectives of our future work to create conditions for both the international community and the parties to work usefully in the future. There were some exchanges around the table on whether it would have been useful or not to have short council conclusions today. There were some different views, not on the content, but on the opportunity to have them or not, in what form. And normally, as you know, council conclusions are prepared in advance, and normally we don't decide them over an informal session on the spot. I do not exclude that we can have Council conclusions on the Middle East, and especially on the way forward of our work, especially on the Quartet, and our relations with our work with the Arab partners in relation to the Middle East peace process in the future. But that will have to be obviously not only prepared, but also probably taken at a stage where things are a little bit more mature on the side of the US new administration when it comes to their own vision that for the moment is not yet clear, especially on the role of the Quartet. So no, Boris didn't stop or prevent any decision of the European Union. On the contrary, as always, he participated fully to all the points of the agenda, and we had a normal council. And by the way, I didn't comment on Jerusalem. I cannot foresee today what a reaction or what consequences could have a decision or an action that is not yet taken. So would be an if answer, which is something that, as you know well, I never do. For sure, I'm worried that large parts, as I say, of not only institutions, but public opinion in parts of the world that are quite significant, the Arab world, but also Africa, Asia, parts of Europe, could have in reaction of a move that for sure would not be in line with, as I said, the international consensus embodied in the UN Security Council resolution, especially 478. But I promised you last time we met that I wanted to ask you also a question, but maybe I'll leave it for later. Is the baby born? Okay, sorry. I had to.
Nureddin.
You'll update me if and when. Okay, thanks. Well, if, for sure. Sorry.
Good afternoon. Happy New Year, Madam.
Not you anymore.
Regarding the consultation you are having with the regional partner on the future of Syria, can you tell us what is your own vision to the Syrian future state? Should it be a secular one, an unconfessional one, a civilian one? And if you don't mind, I have a question regarding your relation with Morocco. Last December, the Court of Justice issued an interesting decision, which is that the partnership should be implemented between European Union and Morocco, but it should not be implemented to the Western Sahara. How are you going to deal with this complexity issue? Thank you.
Thank you. On this, you can refer to the joint statement I published that very same day with the Moroccan Foreign Minister. The very same fact that we reacted together to that pronouncement is in itself, I believe, in content and in symbolism, a sign of our strong determination to work in partnership. And for what concerns the legal aspects of the consequences of that decision, obviously our legal services are still considering all the different implications. But I can say that, again, our partnership with the Moroccan authorities has been excellent in reacting together and following together the decisions taken, and I'm sure that that will constitute a good basis for our relations to move to a different stage, that of a stronger partnership, even stronger partnership. On Syria, the reason why the European Union is well positioned to work on this initiative on the political future of Syria is not only the leverage that we can have on the economic reconstruction, which is a significant one, but it's most of all, I believe, the fact that we have not been part of the conflict. We do not have our own political agenda for the country, but we do have an interest that is based on the relevant UN Security Council resolutions, so purely on the international legal approach and consensus, on having a united Syria, a Syria that is in peace, and that builds a society where all citizens of Syria, regardless of their background, of their religion, of their ethnicity, of their political beliefs, can feel ownership, not only be respected as minorities, but feel ownership of the country. This will require probably profound transformation of the institutional system, but also of the societal dynamics. Syria is not the only country in the region that used to be a place of different communities living together. It still has the potential to be so. And this is the only agenda the European Union has. One, to fulfill the UN security resolutions that are relevant to it. Second, to build a place, or to help build a place where all Syrians can feel home, those that are still in Syria, and those that would like to go back to Syria. And third, a country that can live in good cooperation and peace with all the neighboring countries. This is why we can be somehow honest brokers in the region, making sure that all the regional powers, starting from the Arab countries, feel comfortable with the process of turning the page of the Syrian conflict. Because we know well that in the region, it's the regional powers, it's the regional countries, it's the neighboring countries, and among them, I put Europe. We have to make sure that we will be in the political conditions of supporting a transition in Syria. This has to be prepared. Too many times we have not prepared the post-conflict. This is what we're doing now, preparing politically the transition. As I said several times, the military arrangements for cessation of hostilities are not something that concern the European Union in terms of our active involvement, because we're not military players on the ground. This gives us also the credibility with the Syrian people, all of them, because we have not been there engaged militarily on the ground. We are there for a political solution, for humanitarian support, and we'll try to help as much as we can. But obviously, for us, one thing is clear: the reconciliation, the reconstruction comes with the political transition.
Michael?
Hi, Michael Birnbaum from the Washington Post. I'd like to ask about Donald Trump.
It was not on the agenda.
Donald Trump, perhaps it came up informally, but Donald Trump said this weekend he doesn't care if the European Union splits apart. Can the European Union hold together with a Eurosceptic president in the White House? And are you doing anything special to ensure European unity in the face of a Trump presidency? Thank you.
I think the European Union will stick together. I'm 100% convinced of this. I respect the opinions of the future President of the United States, President-elect, almost President. But I think the European Union will be okay in the future. And as you asked this, let me specify one thing, because I've seen some interviews coming out in these hours. I would like to specify one thing that we discussed also with Boris Johnson today, and he was agreeing with me. It is absolutely clear on the European Union side that as long as a country is a member state of the European Union, which is something that the UK is at the moment, 7 months after the referendum still, so maybe this has also to be taken into consideration. 7 months after the result of the referendum, they're still here, we're still 28. As long as a member state is a member state, there are no negotiations bilaterally on any trade agreement with third parties. This is in the treaties, and this is valid for all member states as long as they remain member states until the very last day. I think this is fair for me to specify, because this is a framework that we all share, including the United Kingdom in this moment.
Bruno?
Bruno Waterfield, Times of London. It might not have been sort of actually at the FAC today, but there certainly seems to have been a debate, co-repair, over 3 sentences to do with the Paris conference that seemed very anodyne indeed. And those words did seem to have the support of at least 25 countries. And Britain, if not Boris Johnson, his representative there, Tim Barrow, did make the argument that perhaps this language could be seen as fencing the president-elect in before his inauguration, trying to bounce him into a policy decision. Do you regret that sensitivity? Surely it's not the best way to show unity, and Trump doesn't seem to be showing any reciprocal or mutual sensitivity when he talks about the EU.
You know, it's maybe because I have an Italian political background. My standards of sensitivities are flexible. I think the next U.S. administration will establish with the European Union a political relationship that I wish it was a partnership, and I wish it will be a partnership. This is also the direction of our talks with Vice President-elect Mike Pence when we had a conversation about this. These are the signals we are getting of a willingness to build a partnership and cooperation on the fields where we have mutual interest, from counterterrorism to economic growth and several other issues around the region and beyond. So many things are not yet clear. I think also for the incoming administration, they will need to take some time. And I'm respectful of this process. Any transition takes time. And I would not comment or elaborate on intentions expressed before they become policies, if not bilaterally and maybe more quietly than in a press room. But what we're looking for is a partnership based on common interests with the United States. The European Union has its own solid, autonomous, strong policies that, as I said several times, is not determined elsewhere than in the places where the European Union member states, European institutions meet, which is Brussels or somewhere else when we have the informal meetings. We always like to be in good company. But we determine our policies by ourselves. So the more common ground we find, the better, because this would bring better results to our common causes. But there might be issues where we might disagree. It has happened in the past. It might happen in the future. This will have to be seen once the administration is in place and takes a decision. That is not the case yet. We still have another administration in place. On the Council conclusions on the Middle East peace process, as I said, but I can repeat it, today we had an informal discussion on the EU work on the Middle East peace process, and especially with the parties. The European Union is the first interlocutor both for Israel and the Palestinians on many different fields, starting from economic cooperation or financial support to political talks. Our links with the two societies, with the two peoples, is strong and puts on us a responsibility that we want to exercise at full. And this was the main point of discussion today. This is the main focus of our work, which is a serious work, a daily work that we do, especially through the work of our Special Representative Gentilini that was with us today. I would not go into comments of other dynamics that were not subject of our meeting today. You do not expect my press conference to comment on the work of the ambassadors in Coreper, I guess. Thanks.
Dusan.
Dusan Gajic, Radio Television of Serbia. I would like to ask your comment on the tensions that we have seen over the weekend between Belgrade and Pristina over the train problem, so to say, the train that was sent from Belgrade to the north of Kosovo and
I guess I know what you're talking about.
So how do you see the involvement of two sides, and what does it say, the tensions about the nature of the dialogue at this moment, and how it will continue in the future?
I was personally not only following but the issue of the train over the weekend, but also personally in touch. As you're from a Serbian media, you know probably that I was in contact with Prime Minister Vučić, extremely worried of a situation that could have easily escalated. And my message to the parties has been to avoid escalations, try to contain both acts and rhetorics, and try to see at the common engagement through the dialogue as something that is delivering for both. Not necessarily, or not so much for both institutions, but for both people. Because the steps we have taken, both with Belgrade and with Pristina last year, are historical somehow. And we managed to move so far and so much on the EU perspective of the entire region. Also because we've managed to build on a positive dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina. This requires sometimes political courage. I know that well. Political leadership, political vision. We are here to help and facilitate. So the question about the perspectives of the dialogue is a question you should rather ask in Belgrade or in Pristina. But what I see is from both sides a determination to continue. To me, what is really important today is to make this process continue to deliver for the people, and agreements already reached, implemented on the ground on both sides, which is, again, sometimes involving difficult decisions. But I think this is a choice that was done knowing exactly what it was entailing, for good reasons on both sides. Tensions are still high. We constantly see it. But the work I see and the determination I see from the leadership, both in Pristina and Belgrade, is a strong one. And as you are from Serbian media, let me thank Prime Minister Vučić for the leadership he has shown in some difficult moments. That I think is providing a good basis for him to continue to pursue the interest of his country and his people and the region through the dialogue.
I'm afraid we are running quite late, so I will conclude at this point. I thank you very much for coming. It's been only the first Foreign Affairs Council of the year, so there will be many other opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Florence, I'm sorry for the questions, but I promised you.